5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Pretty good. We had a wonderful week. Got swept twice, but luckily we're playing the Shock next week, so it's going to get better, right? Who?
Sam. We don't know who he is anymore, but Sam at Another Sunshine can't make it this week. He is the one who...
Wait, Chris, I think you're muted again on stream.
It's all fixed. All fixed.
Cool.
Yeah, I know. It's like I'm a podcaster, not a streamer. Like eventually we're gonna be so big, we're gonna have to hire like a producer. Yeah. Like, you know, and like you watch like Tim the Tap Man, who like just he just says management during a stream, and management gets involved. Like, we need management.
He has a whip like off the.
Well, he's got whips, right? Yeah. But no, yeah, Sam isn't here. It's just myself and Omni to recap what ultimately was a rough weekend for the Vancouver Titans and set up what will be a tough weekend for the Vancouver Titans this go round. But before we get into the payload, you may have noticed that over the weekend, there were a couple of tweets indicating that there is some news to be shared on July 29th. Now, if you happen to not see those tweets, I would recommend that you go and take a look because they have clues. And I'm going to probably give more clues throughout, but there is something huge happening on the 29th. Huge.
I could just reveal it on stream like we did last time, too.
You could totally reveal it on stream. You could just do it right now.
No,
and
too much work went into this. I won't blow it this time.
But that is correct. Huge news is going to be coming up next episode. Not to suggest that this episode doesn't have big news. We always have big news, but even bigger news next week. Sam will be back. It's a guarantee. And yeah, it's going to be good times. The other thing I wanted to mention is our 2020 podcast audience survey has now concluded. I'm going to put together the results. Do plan on sharing all of what you, our listeners, have told us about our podcast. And
get off the air. That's the big one that we got.
Yeah, and you know, I beg to disagree that we will. I mean, we might adapt or adjust, but no, it was really good. I mean, we got a number of responses, got some good tangible feedback, and I think it'll allow us to sort of move forward as we transition into the ever happening world of the Overwatch League. So that's all said and done. Let's get ourselves into the payload.
Moving the payload. Join me.
Well, we let the cat out of the bag right at the top of the episode. The Vancouver Titans lost both to the Paris Eternal as well as to the Gladiators. And not only did they lose, they lost 3-0 both times.
The poor cat got beaten up, killed, thrown into the bag, and tossed into the river.
Yeah, but unlike that Fred Penner song, this cat did not come back. It is a goner. It was, we were talking a little bit about the Eternal match in RSP Cord. And one of the things that it felt like was akin to the same match we saw out of the Titans when they played the Toronto Defiant for that second time. So if we go back to the May Melee, the Vancouver Titans put up a fight that no one expected them to provide in that play-in match, taking the Defiant to 5 maps before ultimately losing. So the rematch occurs. We've got Shockwave in the roster, and he was a huge surprise. And the Titans, they laid an egg against the Defiant. I mean, it was not a good fight. They looked like completely discombobulated. It was almost as if everything that they had gained in that May Melee play-in, they had somehow forgotten. So fast forward to Summer Showdown. We played the Paris Eternal. We looked competitive against the eventual champion, and the Paris Eternal are by far a powerhouse right now in the Overwatch League. So coming into the rematch, I didn't necessarily predict the Vancouver Titans winning. I did say I thought the Titans would lose, but again, it felt like they regressed. The Titans that we saw play the Eternal were committed to a game plan and did not seem to have the either desire to accommodate or change their approach, or if they had the desire, maybe were so committed that they wanted to prove it out come hell or high water. Like what they were doing was not working, and yet the Paris Eternal were throwing out different looks and just like, yeah, okay, no problem. The one moment where the Vancouver Titans actually looked like they had control on Anubis, the Eternal were like, oh yeah, okay, this isn't working, let's change things around, and suddenly the Titans are like, oh, well, they changed.
Yeah. Did it look like Paris were playing with their food? Maybe. I mean, they did come into their own as, the tournament went on. So definitely Paris did improve. But I think you're right. We did see some sort of regression. And in a way, I think it has to do with us just not being our roster, not doing great in this meta. Mm-hmm. But what we saw when the tournament started, we didn't really try to play the meta, right? They came out a bunch of times with what they're good at. They tried to surprise with the double hit scan that they're pretty accustomed to playing. But here they hard committed into that Genji Ashe. And the problem is it might work against some teams when you're going up against the likes of Sparkle and Soon, and you're coming at a disadvantage already. And normally we are able to compete on equal grounds with other DPS, but not this time. Yeah, I think the first map was probably the most abysmal play that we've seen from the Titans in a while.
Well, we saw the Eternal trot out a Junkrat and beat the Titans senseless. Quick, thought. How do you feel Dalton did on Genji? We saw a little bit of him on Genji in the showdown, but I'm curious. What did you think his Genji style or Genji gameplay was like?
I mean, it wasn't like horrible, but compared to the like of Sparkle, it's like fielding any decent Genji against someone like Haxel. That's really the type of criteria we're looking at here. He's that great. And I do think he's more optimal on the Tracer and other heroes that he plays. He doesn't look not uncomfortable on the hero, but when you come up against such a competitor, it's really, really tough to excel. I did find it odd that he really fell in love with it. Because maybe the problem was that he didn't do that bad. Maybe that was the kind of like the trap. Maybe if he started out really horribly, he would have switched quicker. But he did a blade there, 2 kills there, so kind of he was apprehensive of switching and adapting because you're doing well,
Yeah.
not sparkle great or not even like remotely average. He was actually doing decently. Maybe that was kind of the downfall or the pride that he felt like, oh yeah, I can take this guy on.
Well, and so I felt he was okay. I mean,
Right.
you know, to your point, yeah, he wasn't showing himself as a sparkle like a top tier Genji Haxel that we would be accustomed to here in Vancouver. But it felt to me that his Genji was much less than what we would have gotten out of a Tracer play. And as we saw as the weekend developed, Tracer worked in circumstances. I kind of feel that the Vancouver Titans started to see maybe not the success that they might have expected when we saw him bring out Tracer eventually against the Gladiators on Saturday. But I had more confidence in the Vancouver Titans at that point than I had watching sort of the Ash Genji. It just wasn't working, and it almost feels to me that the Vancouver Titans DPS are successful when both Dalton and Shockwave are essentially complementing each other so that a team can't go and single one because the other will punish. That Ash Genji, they were like two disparate pieces of a puzzle that if you took care of one, the other one didn't really threaten.
Right. And not just Shockwave pairing up with Dalton. I think the entire team needs to really synergize for Genji to truly flourish. Because in a way, like you'd see, especially in Anubis, if we're discussing this map, we did compete pretty well in most fights. The only issue was that we lost key fights because of questionable ult economy, like questionable ults when we were already coming down, like even with the Echo when Shockwave switched. Yeah, questionable decisions, really.
No, and I think questionable decisions have punished the Vancouver Titans this current iteration of this roster from day one. And you know what? Mistakes are going to continue to occur. They're simply going to be things that you go and learn from and hope to not continue to make moving forward. I mean, there was a point where we had actually commented where I think Shred popped his Q as Ryan, where he had no support, he had no follow-up, and he had a third of his health. And it was like, okay, well, there's a shatter that knocked... I think he actually knocked a handful down, but there was absolutely no value received from it. And it was a wasted shatter. It's that type of, what I describe as the mystery hero ult, where you're like, I'm popping it because I'm going to lose it. Whether I get value or not matters little because I'm going back to spawn and I'm re-rolling a character. That's how that one felt. And had he switched, actually, if he'd gone from Ryan and went to a Winston or a ball... I would have been like, yeah, okay, that's exactly what he did. I'm just going to toss it out because I'm going to lose it anyway. But that's not what occurred.
Another thing that happened in this Anubis map, it's already kind of like a pattern with this team, is we got through A pretty quickly. So we had, I would say normally for another team, it would be a time bank advantage. For us, it's a time bank disadvantage because the way they play when they have more time to spare than the other team, it looks like they're going down 2 levels at least for some reason.
Well, it's almost as if they are clock watching, right? Like how in the traditional sports, the moment you start watching the clock is when things start to go sideways. Exactly. And I think with the Vancouver Titans, that some of that is what occurs. So the Paris match, they didn't look so good. But you know what? Regroup, face the Gladiators on Saturday. And, while, yes, the desk did not give the Titans a chance, there were a lot within the scene and in the community that say, here is actually a team that's moving up. The Titans, yeah, they got beat by Paris, but everyone's getting beat by Paris. They're placing the Gladiators, who are not in a good spot. And the Gladiators, again, had very little trouble with this Vancouver Titans roster. Vancouver Titans rolled out Ash Genji again. They did eventually start to move away from that. Shockwave went on to Echo, which seemed interesting because it felt to me that the Echo transition early on was more of a comfort. Well, I'm not getting any value with Ash, so let me go here. And then eventually we saw Dalton switch off of the Genji into a Tracer, but
yeah,
we saw Shred essentially being shredded. He wasn't feeding. He just didn't get the support that was necessary to keep him up. And that stat where the Vancouver Titans have a 0% win rate, when they go down in a team fight, like that is
Yeah.
nuts. Like there's essentially it's like let's just jump off and roll back. I don't know how you fix that, but my take at this point, seeing the Vancouver Titans roll out essentially the same meta that's not working for them, it's either one of two things. Game plan, like we have a plan, we're going to stick to it, we're going to prove this out, eventually it'll work. Or two, the Vancouver Titans are not reading the meta well enough to understand how they in turn can play or within it or around it.
Right.
And that, let's go back to the Summer Showdown. The Vancouver Titans lost handily to the Toronto Defiant and then suddenly came back and looked quite good against the Dallas Fuel before beating the Boston Uprising. They looked good there. What was the difference? It's almost like they needed to have the league show them what the meta was and the possibilities were within the hero pool, and then they adapt the second week. So maybe leading into the weekend against the San Francisco Shock, we might see a different Vancouver Titans team, one that comes out a little more competitive, against, unfortunately, a team like the San Francisco Shock.
Yeah, perhaps it was just like the fact that they weren't going up against the Paris Eternal and not having Sparkle on the other side. And Dalton was again thinking, yeah, my Genji is decent, which it is. But it was kind of awkward seeing that actually the Gladiators came out with a Tracer Genji. So I'm like, oh, that may be a lost opportunity to play the Tracer. But then I realized, wait, unless Shockwave is ulting as an Echo, we don't really see him playing Genji that much.
Which he did, and he ulted as an Echo to Tracer.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Actually,
when
I
I
think he
look
did
at
Genji once too.
you did it on Li Jiang, right?
Yeah.
When I look at the Paris match, it felt much more of an uphill battle for the Titans. Here, though, like you're going up against a team with the Gladiators without space, and Kevster surprisingly was starting on the Genji was pretty good in this game. But what I thought like the big thing was for at least the first portion of this match is they have the Zen and Brig against our Moira and Lucio, and when you're like going in such a battle, the Zen Brig is much sharper type of support duo that can get those picks and support a little bit quicker instead of the AoE effects of the Moira and the Lucio, which kind of felt slow and reactive compared to and especially someone like Shaz, who's known to be like a bloodthirsty Zen. He was in there supporting Kevster and just discording targets back and forth, and there is already like a big buff to that discord, so we saw that effect, and I think that was like the real big difference in Li Jiang at least.
Yeah. The thing that concerned me the most, I guess, though, with the match against the Gladiators was that, again, the Vancouver Titans committed to something, and while I will give credit that you want to stick to your plan, there needs to be the ability to have someone make that call to adapt. It's no different than in football where a quarterback calls an audible, or the players on the ice or on the field make a call, make a decision. They're best prepared by their coaching staff to go and do something, but you have plan B, C, and you know when to make that call, make that decision. Like the Vancouver Titans could have easily played, dive against the Gladiators, but didn't.
Yeah.
Right? Like there were just so many opportunities for the Titans to shift. I'm not going to say that shifts like this would have resulted in a different, result itself. Like the Vancouver Titans may have still lost, but at least at that point, it shows us that they're trying different things.
Especially when both of our opponents were actually trying different things that weren't like really play. Like the Junkrat again, I think they played it on Anubis. The Doomfist came out. Have we seen anyone play Doomfist on our team? Yeah, a little bit, but
like okay, the Junkrat. Like, I mean, I'm not suggesting the Vancouver Titans give me a call and say, "Hey, Lightforce, bring a Junkrat out," but I would imagine a Junkrat pick is possible. And
you're bringing back my PTSD.
But you know what I mean? Like that we are seeing other teams provide a different look. Paris and LA were not coming out and doing this, I think, because it was the Vancouver Titans. They were doing this because it gave them a winning condition. This was not the Philadelphia Fusion bringing chips in.
Yeah.
So I mean, ultimately, though, what happened? The Vancouver Titans lost 3 out of the Eternal, lost 3 out of the Gladiators, and
Oh, but that Gibraltar map, at least they woke up
um,
a little bit. I mean,
true.
normally they just play worse when they're down 0-2. This one was an exception.
No, fair enough. I will. Yeah, I mean, how many times have we seen Gibraltar where they can't even get it through the first choke, right?
They won like I think like 4 or 5 fights in a row and on their push, which was quite impressive. But then you know
But
they clutched it out. Kevster clutched it out in the last over time. I thought maybe if they took that map, we would have seen a better game like going forward.
And okay, you're right. I should give the Vancouver Titans credit. They had a winning condition in overtime.
Right.
Like they actually, I believe, got the first 2 picks.
Mm-hmm,
But again, it was mistakes that started to get made, and next thing you know,
mistakes. Did he like retire?
Yes. Yeah. Before we actually set up the match against the San Francisco Shock, this actually was a conversation that took place in Defiant Court. Why would you be in favor of loser picking next map even during the season, like even in the lead up to the tournament? Or do you feel that there needs to be structure where the maps are preset? Like I do get that adds a variable that we've sort of railed against in the past with hero pools, but I feel that loser picks next map introduces a capacity to provide teams such as, let's say, the Titans an opportunity to extend simply because they have a map that's superior to the other. Like Gibraltar is not their. I don't think that's their strength, right? Let's say Junkertown is. If the Vancouver Titans have the ability to pick a Junkertown, it provides a level of parity because of the map. I mean, it's already occurring with heroes. So again, I'm sort of in favor of it, but I do get that from a coaching perspective. Like suddenly, well, how do we go and set game plans to this, to this, to this, to this? If then that much more complexity, sure.
And just get good on every map. Easy.
Yeah. Well, it's just like Team RSP. We are good in every single map. Just don't go watch any of the VODs of our team matches. Going into this weekend, the Vancouver Titans are taking on the San Francisco Shock. Do we lose 3-0 or do we lose 3-1?
It depends who they field.
I'm sorry. Do you think we're going to see Super on Genji?
Well, we might see Tayo on the Genji. Super on the Genji? Maybe. His Genji is better than mine, I can tell you that. It was pretty decent, but we might actually. It was played. Who did they play? Was it Boston? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And so, I mean, the running joke has been Super's been trying to tell Krusty, play me on Genji, play me on Genji. Look at me on ladder. Look at my result. I'm good. And then, of course, Boston gets the Chipsa experience, except with Super on Genji, and Super looked good. Now, granted, competition, and yes, I think the Vancouver Titans are maybe in a better place than the Boston Uprising are right now, but the Genji versus Genji battle,
Let's just say it like that. The gap between us and the Uprising is much smaller than the gap we have against the Shock. But at least against Super, I feel like Dalton can outmatch him, at least in this year.
Yeah, it's tough that the Vancouver Titans are going up against some of the tougher competition within the Overwatch League right now, and it doesn't get any easier. Obviously, this was bound to happen, but I mean, I would love for the Vancouver Titans to surprise me here. I just, the San Francisco Shock are all in all a tough roster every day of the week. And we joke that they have guys on the bench that could be grouped up with the three of us and would be competitive. And that's not because the three of us, well, you're pretty good. Sam and I are not. So, it's difficult for me to go and say I think the Vancouver Titans have a shot here. And I'm the type of guy that would go and quote the movie Any Given Sunday if I could, so.
Yeah, like the Shock don't normally lose to a team like the Titans unless something really, there's like some variable that they hadn't prepared for, or we come up with like a weird type of meta. We stick away from that, like Ash Genji approach, maybe something works better for us next week.
I mean, we're going to get Twilight on Genji probably with our luck, and he'll
Oh, yeah,
take
that
us
that guy
to
can play anything he wants, really.
lane. Hero pool still in effect. It's going to be May, Widow, Orisa, Anna that are locked out.
Which I don't like too. I think Shredlock by far his best hero is the Orisa.
Yeah, it's a tough way. I mean, the Vancouver Titans. I want them to see put up a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's all I ask. Make the San Francisco Shock work for the win.
Play better than Boston.
And even if they were swept 3-0, like we've talked about this before. Close sweep, where it's a 2-1 control. It's a 2 CP that went into 6 rounds or whatever. It's a
hard for the Bruin.
Yeah, like I just an escort that actually went to overtime and possibly had more than 1 point. Like that, if the Vancouver Titans could go and start to do that I think should help build confidence. That's what it's the moral victory.
Yeah.
So yeah, I sort of said I think the Vancouver Titans. I see it's 3-0 Shock. Do you see that being any different? Do you think we could see a 3-1, a 3-2? Do you think a Vancouver Titans win? Sam's already gone and notched at 3-0 Titans because he's pledged to do
the
it.
optimistic 3-1.
3-1? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's tough seeing this type of matchup so soon after a tough weekend.
At least we weren't even able to beat them with our previous roster, so there's that.
That's true, and here in our live stream, that's what Atomic Skull just said. As far as other Titans news, they've been creating a lot of different content. There is that partnership with Sportsnet where they do the essentially the weekend review. There was an article that Flubby was part of. The Vancouver Titans themselves have produced, Asking a Titan and what have you. So check out the YouTube channel. You'll be able to find all that. But the news that I actually wanted to share, which broke today, it has to do with our friends Circle K, Western Canada. They have a partnership with the Vancouver Titans where they're producing these Froster mugs. But what's really cool about this first mug is they had a contest where the community got to enter in artwork. And Jesse, who is actually a mod in Vancouver Titans Discord, but also an extremely talented artist, she entered a piece of artwork that was selected to be a winning design, and you can go grab her cup right now at Circle K's in Western Canada, which, if memory serves me correct, is BC through to Manitoba, including the Yukon Territory and Northwest Territory. Again, I'm pulling this from memory. I'm not entirely sure of the territories.
Man, I'd kill for a Froster right now.
Oh, it's so hot. I know. Ooh. I did contemplate running out to Circle K to pick one up. And this is not an ad spot. This is legit. I could do with a Froster right now.
But it could be.
It could be. Hey, you know us, we know you. Hint, hint, nudge, 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 nudge. Anyway, go and check those mugs out. The pictures are already on social. There's a picture in Titans Court, RSP Court. It is a good-looking mug. Again, Jessie, phenomenal artist. Please, let her know your thoughts. And if anyone is ever looking for some work, she is one of the many talented artists here in the Vancouver. She's
pretty
Titans
active
community.
in our Minecraft server, is she not?
Jessie is active? I don't think Jessie is in our Minecraft. Active in our Minecraft server.
I'm definitely not, so I'm
No, I'm trying to think now, but anyway. We're going to take ourselves here a short break before we dive into the fray.
Back into the fray.
As we kick off the fray, I should give a shout out to Rockefeller, who dropped us a sub on Twitch, as well as myself, that Light Force guy. 2 months in a row, top-notch fellow. But again, thank you for those Twitch Prime subs. Every little bit helps. Any support that you provide us when we're live streaming We do want to recognize. As far as the fray, however, let's talk a little bit about the week that was. So in rapid fire, Vancouver Titans kicked off the weekend by losing to the Paris Journal 3-0, as we already know. That was followed by the Battle of Texas, which was an entertaining match between the Dallas Field and Houston Outlaws. Dallas won 3-2. The weekend was then further kicked off by the Asia Pacific region for Saturday only. Hangzhou Spark beat the Seoul Dynasty 3-0. The Guangzhou Charge beat the London Spitfire 3-1. And then the Chengdu Hunters beat the New York Excelsior 3-2, which was a wacky match. Like at one point, the Chengdu Hunters comp was like, not, I couldn't even say it was quick play. It was more Mystery Heroes than anything else. The Titans then lost to the LA Gladiators, as we already know. The Toronto Defiant beat the Washington Justice 3-0 handedly. The Florida Mayhem beat the Boston Uprising 3-0, and the Atlanta Reign beat the LA Valiant 3-0. We then go to Sunday, which is just in NA, and that's where the Paris Eternal beat the Toronto Defiant 3-0. The Atlanta Reign lost to the Florida Mayhem 3-1, and the LA Valiant beat the Boston Uprising 3-0. So as you can see, a whole lot of threes and a whole lot of O's, except for a couple of matches. As far as the matches that we had recommended everyone pay attention to, both you and I had said, let's watch the Washington Justice Toronto Defiant map. And in the conversation that we had, I had pointed out that the fact that Anna was out of the picture swung the advantage distinctly towards the Defiant. You were maybe a little less confident on that. You still felt the Toronto Defiant were, the team to win. Sam, however, was like, no, man, Justice are legit.
No, I was just concerned with the curse.
Oh, okay. Well, there was no curse there because the Light Force curse, if that was the case and if it were to exist, it failed. The Toronto Defiant looked good against the Washington Justice. We also saw the introduction of both Surefour and Agilities in Atlanta, which that kind of blew my mind that we now got the DPS pairing that people have been asking about for probably since like the May Melee. And like even when we had Adam join us, we had sort of brought that topic up, and it was talked about like we're best players, best opportunity, so on and so forth. Well, we saw them come in; they look good. Those two look like a veteran pair of DPS players.
What did you think about Houston versus Outlaws and Dallas versus the Fuel match?
Houston versus the Outlaws and Dallas versus the Fuel.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, I mean, I said it was so not all entertaining matches have to be good, right? Like sometimes, like I'm going to use the hockey reference here for those of you who come to a let's say an NHL game in Canada. During one of the intermissions, they're going to have what they call Timbits hockey, where a bunch of kids come out and have a good time skating around, playing hockey on the big ice.
Yeah.
It is complete chaos. It's complete madness, and everyone loves it. That's what that match felt like to me. It is entertaining for different reasons. Anyhow. As far as the rest of the weekend, I had also suggested watching the Toronto Defiant Paris Eternal match. I did watch this. Yeah. And at one point, when I was talking to the crew over in Defiant Cord, I actually said it felt like the Toronto Defiant were going full Titans. Like they were so committed to their game plan against the Paris Eternal, whether it was going to give them value or not. Like it was
words.
It was weird.
Yeah.
And I wasn't meaning that in a derogatory sense. I felt the Toronto Defiant had flexibility. Like they have a bench. The Vancouver Titans, they have Suna. We're not entirely sure if and when Suna might find his way in, but there is no ability to go and swap a shred out for another main tank or a KSA if need be, although I can't imagine swapping KSA. Whereas the Toronto Defiant, they can bring in Beast. They can bring in Numlock. They have flexibility that the Titans don't have. They didn't look good. Now, Paris, again, very good team. But I think the Vancouver Titans, no one expected the Titans to do very well against Paris. I think there were quite a few people that gave the Defiant a chance. So again, it's unfortunate that we didn't get as good of a match as we would have liked. Mm-hmm. However, Toronto, is showing signs of life that they had been lacking, earlier in the season.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but with them, like the most consistent thing is their inconsistency. So maybe that's kind of, but then again, it's not really fair when you're going up against Paris, who are now on like their hottest streak.
Yeah, Paris is, the top team. The logic is to be the best, you have to beat the best. And right now, the Paris Eternal are the best. And I don't know if there is anyone in the current meta can beat them. Even the Shock, I think, would be, challenged to face the Paris Eternal. I think there's competition to be had there, but Paris is in a league of their own.
Yep.
So that brings us into the week that will be. Now, just like last week, we have another Friday kickoff. Thankfully, this Friday, it's not the Vancouver Titans that are going to be kicking the week off. That is the one of two reprieves that we get with the rest of the summer schedule. But on Friday, at noon Pacific, the Atlanta Reign are taking on the Boston Uprising, followed by the Florida Man taking on the San Francisco Shock. We then fast forward to 1 a.m. Pacific when the Seoul Dynasty take on the Chengdu Hunters, the Shanghai Dragons take on the London Spitfire, and 3 a.m. and at 5 a.m. it's the New York Excelsior versus the Guangzhou Charge. At noon, as we already know, the Vancouver Titans are going to take on the San Francisco Shock. The Florida Mayhem take on the Washington Justice at 2 p.m. 4 p.m. it's the Boston Uprising and the Dallas Fuel. And then at 6 p.m. the Philadelphia Fusion take on the Los Angeles Gladiators. Unlike last weekend, there is actually APAC play on Sunday, and that has the not the Shanghai Dragons, but the Chengdu Hunters taking on the Hangzhou Spark at 1 a.m., followed by the Shanghai Dragons and Seoul Dynasty at 3 a.m. 12 noon, the LA Gladiators are taking on the Paris Eternal, followed by the 2 p.m. match of the Toronto Defiant, the Philadelphia Fusion, and 4 p.m. Washington Justice versus the Houston Outlaws.
I wonder if the APAC teams are already sick of playing each other.
Well, I mean, it's such a small pool. I mean, and they only have as many matches. We're going to talk a little bit about the Owl playoffs and format in a moment, where we'll eventually get to see some variety added to that region. But as far as the matches to watch, so Sam, he picked the Titans Shock match, and he said easy 3-0 Titans. Because, that's Sam. You and I, however, we both picked the Toronto Defiant to Philadelphia Fusion match. Now, I'll let you go first. Tell me, why did you pick that match?
I just want to see one key matchup in EQO versus Agilities, to be honest.
Yeah?
Who can carry more on the Genji. I think that EQO will have the upper hand, but I'm looking forward to see my boy Agilities play.
So I hadn't thought it that way. I think EQO has the edge, a clear edge. I don't think it's up for debate. I'm not trying to knock Agility here. EQO is
3 Genji for sure. Maybe top. I don't know who you have. Haxel, Sparkle, EQO, and a tier of their own.
There was this
Alton.
A coach in the English Football Association who once said, "I don't know if I'm the best, but I'm definitely in the conversation for top 1." EQO.
That's a good line.
He's definitely in the conversation for top 1. So I picked it because, again, Toronto Defiant soft spot. I think this is a make or break match. So that we know the Defiant didn't do too well against the Paris Eternal. Paris Eternal are a top team. Philadelphia is equally a good team.
Maybe a tier below, but up there too.
Yeah, I think the Toronto. This is sort of the show me type of match. If Toronto is truly a top tier team, as some of the power rankings are currently providing them as, this is a match where they don't necessarily have to win, but it has to be close. It has to be hard fought, and it has to be the type of match that goes either way. If the Toronto Defiant can't prove that against the Philadelphia Fusion, then I think it's more likely that we have to see them as that mid tier team.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the weekend, it was there's lots of stuff. I mean, the APAC region is so hard to predict right now because we've seen so much craziness. The New York Excelsior, for instance, apparently have only just gotten together, and they've been into Korea, they've been in Korea as long as the old Titans were, weren't they?
There was a time that they were still in NA. I'm not really sure when that transition occurred.
Yeah, I mean, anyhow, it's just so weird because the fact that these players were playing separately and now we're coming together. So maybe there's something to be said there as they face the Guangzhou Charge. That might be a good match to watch. The Dynasty Hunters. I mean, I can't say go watch the Dynasty Hunters, but then the Hunters go and put up some craziness against just. And then in NA, it's right now in NA, it's clear top tier teams. There's a large middle tier, and then there's the teams that exist in the bottom. Washington, Vancouver and Boston in one way, shape, or form. Oh, man. Anyway, as far as other news. So, podcast lore states that all the greatest and best news in the Overwatch League seems to break on Wednesday. And because the Overwatch League listens to our podcasts and knows that they need to get this information out on Wednesdays before we do, they broke news of the Overwatch League playoff and grand finals. Now, I'm not going to go through all the details because a whole week has gone by, and I'm going to presume that many of you have already gone through and consumed the content. But at a high level, for those that might not have. So, the playoffs themselves are going to kick off in September. And on September 3rd, that kicks off a 2-week sort of like online match similar to what we've seen with like the May Melee and the Summer Showdown and what we're going to see to the Countdown Cup. And the intent being is there's going to be a series of sort of play-in matches for teams within a bracket. So let's talk a little bit about APAC. It's simple. APAC is going to have essentially a 6 versus 7, and then third seed takes the winner, and then fourth seed takes who's ever left, and then they go into a double elimination. NA, it's similar. There's essentially the play-in, and then there's some more play-ins, and then a play-in, and then double elimination. But eventually what's going to occur is that there are going to be 2 NA teams and 2 APAC teams left. And at the conclusion of this sort of play-in tournament, the NA teams are going to travel to Asia. Now, before you say, oh, are they going to Korea? Are they going to China? We don't know. All we know is they are going to that region. Right. What it is we do know is they are not going to be playing on LAN. There is not going to be a stage match. It is not going to be necessarily teams in the same location. They are simply moving the NA teams to the Asian region to make it more competitive and add to the integrity of a match that isn't completely dictated by ping. Now, when the NA teams go travel to Asia, they've already acknowledged that there is going to be a period of time that needs to occur to allow for essentially any quarantine requirements, acclimation to the region, time zones, and all of that. So there will be apparently a 2 or 3 week downtime between the end of the sort of double elimination brackets and the sort of finals weekend, as I guess it would be, or finals weekends. I'm not entirely clear if it's 1 or none or 2.
Yeah.
Now, as far as when the matches will be shown, that's to be determined. So let's put on our thinking caps here. For those of you keeping score, I'm going to presume that the Asian region, it's going to be Korea. I can't see China being it. And it's just geopolitical more than anything else. So I could see sort of South Korea. Now, if you were to go and look at time zones, the Overwatch League will want to maximize the number of eyes that they can draw based on, whether it's EU, NA, and Asia. So they have to acknowledge straight off the bat that they're going to lose one of those regions based on time. I'm going to presume they're going to lose the EU. And this is not me taking a shot at the EU. It's just the number of NA teams that exist. It's just truly that. They're an NA-centric league, whether we want to accept it or not. So if they drop the EU to get a time that's okay, and I mean okay loosely in Korea, and a time that's okay, and I mean that loosely in North America, means a Korean morning and an Eastern North America evening. Like we're talking like a 10 p.m. Eastern style match that would kick off. And if they were to have 2, it might be like a 9 and 11. Which for us in the West Coast is actually not horrible, because that would be, for us, prime, what we would call prime time. That's speculative on my part, though. But it feels to me like that's what they would do. Like, if they were to go and accommodate a prime time slot in Korea, which is fine, that makes it infinitely tough on a North American audience. And while, yes, there will be diehards that will get up and watch.
Right.
I mean, I remember the difficulty that we had getting up to watch the Vancouver Titans when it wasn't appointment viewing. You missed the first Vancouver Titans match because it started an hour before it was supposed to, and it was over so quick.
No, you're right. They'll definitely want to capitalize on both the NA and the Asia region too. They get consistently like good numbers, especially now going forward, much better than the start of the season. Mm-hmm. So it makes a lot of sense. It's interesting, the entire logistical part of actually traveling and not doing LAN. maybe they'll just go into like a PC bong or something like that. I'm not really sure.
Well, but that's the thing is, if they were to go into a PC bunk, why not do it on LAN? The part of not doing it on LAN, I find it
Just
somewhat
get longer
surprising.
cables. Just get a really long Ethernet cable
Okay.
and
I'm old enough to remember that's how we did things way back
Right.
in the day, right? But no, you know, their acknowledgement of not going on LAN has more to do with the fact that they don't know if they could actually get that set up in time. So they sort of made the assumption that's not going to happen, so we're going to go and do it online. But again, it's really really weird as to the
Atomic
approach.
Skulls, wrote in chat that maybe they'll do the same thing they did with Lunatica and Runaway, which was
Well,
also like not a LAN match, right?
true, but anything that's pre-recorded though becomes problematic. Pre-recorded, you can't contain the noise; it leaks. There are people who are gonna okay, well I don't need to watch because the result wasn't what I wanted, right? So you
They'll
don't.
be like
I
Waj
don't.
bombs.
Yeah, I don't know if the Overwatch League would want to lose viewers. It was one thing where you had Lunatic High and Runaway, which, again, that show match was not necessarily meant for an NA audience. It was one that they used for an NA audience.
It's more like an exhibition too.
Yeah. Anyhow, it'll be interesting. More will come out. It's probably going to be on a Wednesday. Podcast lore dictates that. That's what occurs. But what does this all mean? Hey, the Vancouver Titans are in. Now,
Now we're always in it.
whether they go all the way, I mean,
Time for that top 4 seed again.
yeah. In the weekly Uprising podcast Discord, it said Boston Uprising, Vancouver Titans, 2 NA seeds, lock it in. Anyhow, they appreciated me pandering to them and supporting the Titans. What can I say? But I think now, I'd be honest, and I did feel guilty afterwards because I'm like, well, no, I want the 2 Canadian teams. That would be something awesome if the 2 Canadian teams were, representing the Maple Leaf. But
That'll be great.
But what does this all mean? NA and Asia will be playing 2 teams and 2 teams, and you can argue until you lose your breath that doesn't make sense because there are fewer Asia teams than NA. But hey, it is the way it is.
It's gonna bring in the big numbers.
Yeah.
To be sure of that.
Other things that have been going on in the Overwatch League, player movement. So, Spree, no longer with Houston. I will be the first to admit, I had forgotten Spree was on the Houston Outlaws.
Did you know that Boink is still on the roster?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. It's these are the things that maybe we should know, but we are right now a Vancouver Titans podcast, so really, why would we pay attention to other teams? Atlanta has seen a couple of retirements. First, Baby Bay, though we kind of knew this was going to happen because of the comments that he had made on the Summer Showdown, but he has officially retired. Has he officially said he's going to Valorant now? Has that actually happened? Because his tweet longer didn't actually say that, but everyone's saying he's going to Valorant.
I guess an NDA or something like that.
Maybe.
Like an announcement for that for a team roster reveal.
Yeah, and then also retiring from Atlanta is Kodak. Although in his tweet longer, Kodak talked about how he sort of lost passion for the game. It was affecting his sort of mental health, and he needed to make changes. But in his retirement, he is now transitioning into a coaching role, which I actually like that transition. But the question I asked on RSP Cord, is this still an indication that the Overwatch League, or maybe not the league as a whole, but teams themselves need to do a better job at providing for, both physical as well as the mental health of their players? It's one thing to lose the passion for the game. Teams have very little ability to deal with that. That's more an Activision Blizzard thing. But then the other component to keep in mind, though, is that I feel that these are young kids that still need to be provided a modicum of support, or if it's there, it's almost the parental relationship where someone needs to act as team mom or team dad or whomever it is to almost force them to do things to sort of recharge those batteries. I mean, we've talked about RSP Cord, like back in the day with the Titans, how, friend of the show, Katrina, would be the Titans team mom. And I think that's kind of necessary, especially when we consider these are still kids.
Agreed. But, these issues or these challenges are so complicated that even if you do provide that support, it's not going to work in every situation or in every case. These are such complex issues that I think we're just scraping just the tip of the iceberg. So hopefully, especially now with COVID and all this additional stress that was put on the league and the league's surviving or not. Yeah, I cannot really blame organizations for
I'm not blaming. I'm simply
no.
asking that they maybe need to do
I'm not
more.
implying that, but yeah, it's tough out there, both in the league and out of it. But I'm just happy that he was able to remain with the team, because I remember before this season even began, there was a big interview with I forgot his name, but one of the GMs of or the GM of the Reign, and he said like what a professional guy Kodak was, which he was actually on the original roster, and then he got dropped, but then he like proved himself to be such a good professional on their academy team. So he's like a stalwart athlete on that organization. So I'm happy to see him transition into a coaching role for sure.
We already sort of shared it when we were talking about the matchup. The San Francisco Shock. Tayo was announced today, that being Tuesday, that he is joining the San Francisco Shock. Shock then tweet out a picture that Krusty already has him on Genji, and like the look on Super's face is phenomenal. And then there's Moth. He's just happy. Then Atomic Skull is actually saying in chat that Essentila Spitfire. I did not see that, but again. Right. Not to suggest it didn't happen. Stuff happens all the time. It's hard to keep track. Just saying. What else is going on in the game? Jeff came out.
Tayo was signed by San Francisco Shock as well.
Yeah, I said that, and then Super was looking at him poorly. Don't you just like we were just talking about this?
Yeah,
Who are you, Sam? Uncle Jeff came out and said that they're going to erase Genji from the game in an upcoming patch.
Finally, we're gonna rise up in the power rankings.
What else? Apparently, there's going to be a couple of cards. One is essentially a play mode that internally they felt didn't work. But hey, let's give it to the people and see what they think.
Such an awkward statement to make. Like, why would you even say that?
Like, I don't mind. Like, the experimental on the cards, that's what the purpose of those are. Let's have some fun with them. I kind of wish that they could sort of use them a little bit more often. But yeah, it's kind of weird. And then other sort of adjustments. But yeah, erasing Genji's going to happen. Atomic Skull and Chaz like vanilla Overwatch. Yeah, pretty much. It's just eventually Activision Blizzard did it with World of Warcraft. They brought out vanilla WoW. So at what point in time are we going to get vanilla Overwatch? And then we'll see it in the competitive scene where 6 Winstons come flying over the arch on Hanamura.
Shielded Bastions.
Oh, well, thankfully Shielded Bastion didn't make it into the vanilla version. Shielded Bastion was... in the alpha, I want to say? No, I only had a chance to play the beta.
Beta definitely had Shielded Bastion.
Oh, beta did? Okay, when I played in the beta, he did not have a shield. Because, the one character in the game that needs a shield of his own, Bastion.
Triple shield meta, here it comes.
Oh, God. And to think about the way the original game was, imagine having like 6 Bastions, all with their own individual shields. Or better yet, you know what? Let's be reasonable. You'll have a Reinhardt, and then you'll have maybe 4 shielded Bastions, and you'll have a Mercy who can just get her ult and then hide.
Yeah.
Underneath everyone. So.
And Titans will still go Ashe Genji against that. So.
Oh, we are cruel. So cruel.
Sometimes.
But we are at the end of an episode. And I didn't give you, Omni, your shout out for dropping a Twitch sub on the channel. So thank you.
Granted.
I just like to point out that 2 of the 3 hosts subscribe to our Twitch channel. You get to figure out which one of the 3 does not. Oh, man. It's not fun to pick on Sam when he's not here. Like,
ooh.
Exactly. I don't know if you saw the conversation on Twitter, but Siren Song, Jay had sort of commented there needs to be like TSP or RSP cups, and I think it was D Baker that had commented about getting one of our mugs on them. Can you imagine that picture of Sam that occasionally makes an appearance of him looking kind of confused show up on a Froster mug? Like, that would increase sales, wouldn't it? I'd buy one.
Just for the novelty, maybe.
Oh, man. Hey, if friends at Circle K are listening, let's do a run of Shocked Sam Froster mugs.
and
Seriously,
they're in
there's
shambles right now. How didn't we think of this?
pure gold. It could be like, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory type thing. You pull one of these Shock Sams out and they get a factory tour of the Froster factory. Oh gosh, yeah. You can tell it's hot. We're completely losing our mind here. But any final words of wisdom you want to share with all of our listeners and the viewers that have tuned in tonight?
We never truly grow out of our dislike for green veggies, do we?
I don't know where you're going with this, but maybe.
Take it anywhere you want.
Okay. First of all, I'm just happy that we haven't seen you, change to the world of gray or sepia. I think what was it, sepia? You thought you might rock
Yeah, I
today?
thought about it.
So
I'm pretty vibrant today with the pink.
But Vancouver Titans, take note. We don't want Omni to go grayscale again. Keep color in his life. We all benefit from this.
I'm very Hangzhou today.
And then there's this big news that we're breaking on the 29th, which is the next episode, not this one. So you do need to make sure you listen to that episode. Or for those who are listening to the episode today or happen to be watching a live stream, it's not like we're going to hide the news from the live stream. So if you want to learn more about what this big news is, you could watch us at twitch.tv/ReadySetPwn. I mean, that's probably the quickest way. Or you can wait, and that's fine.
Better, I think, live, right?
Well, it might be. I mean, it could be like there could be fireworks, right?
You'd be able to say, like, tell your children, I was there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm genuinely excited that this big news is taking place. Like, what do you think it is, Ani? I mean, if you were to guess, what do you think's happening next week?
Well, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm. My goodness! Wow, that is.
and that's gonna be that. It's gonna be pretty amazing.
I can't believe you just said what you said. That is nuts, man. Like I
Hold it in. I'm sorry.
We had this conversation. That's the reason why Sam's not on this episode is he didn't feel he could contain his excitement with what's happening. And you just said what you said. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah. But if you, our listeners, agree with what Omni just said and feel that this is the direction we should go, please let us know. Alternatively, if you don't think Omni's throwing a curveball here and you think it's something else, talk to us in RSP Cord. Get into our Discord, take part in the conversation by going to discord.io/ReadySetPwn. We're on Twitter @ReadySetPwn, Instagram @ReadySetPwn, Facebook @ReadySetPwn. Pretty much, I think you've noticed there's a theme here. You can find us at ReadySetPwn.com. As far as the podcast is concerned, our hope is that you do subscribe to our podcast. If you don't, we are available on every single podcast app that is out there. We also ask if you like what it is you hear, or heck, if it is something you don't, let us know by leaving us a review. Whether it's a phenomenal review or it's a horrible review, we take them all. And you can actually share those thoughts with us by going to podchaser.com/ReadySetPwn. And as is practice, we will read these reviews live on an upcoming episode because we want to showcase both the good, the bad, as well as the ugly, and we'll take our lumps as best as we can. Last but not least, if you want to drop feedback to us, it's feedback@readysetpwn.com or voicelink.fm/ReadySetPwn. So on behalf of myself, Chris @Lightforce, the missing in action, Sam @another Sam Chan, the guy with the loose lips who's sinking the ships, Omni @OmniStrife. I'm going to sign this episode off with those magical 2 words, catchphrase.